Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Brought to you by Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice. And by the 2013 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 15 years in a row. Honda, the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Welcome to Rogers Center. This is the fourth and final game of this four-game series against the Tigers. The last time these two ball clubs will play this season. It is 28 degrees at the start of game time. Moments ago when the umpires met at home plate, the two clubs exchanged lineups, and then afterward Jim Leland was called out of the dugout. He did not go to home plate for the umpire meeting. Rafael Bedliard, the first base coach, took the lineups out, but then Jerry Lane called Jim Leland out. No idea what they're talking about. They could be talking about the All-Star game, saying, "Hey, Jim, you got any good restaurants in New York?"
Where are you staying when you head to the Big Apple?
So Colby Rasmus was the center of attention in the post-game media scrum, especially on the Tiger side of things. They felt like the slide was not a clean slide. Now it's time to take a look at the lineups. They are brought to you by Quaker State. Real, durable oil. Tigers won 6-2 in last night's game. They actually had just 8 hits. The Blue Jays out-hit them, but they had the key hits and had another big second inning. Prince Fielder is the cleanup batter, and this year against the Blue Jays, he's had a lot of success. 7 for 22 with a homer and 7 RBIs in those 7 hits, and then Victor Martinez right behind him. The switch hitters had a good series. 4 for 10. He's hit the ball hard throughout the entire series. They're going to have to keep their eye on the 4 and 5 hitters in this lineup. Notice no Miguel Cabrera. Just a night off for him. He is not injured. Jim Leland just didn't want him on this turf for 7 straight days.
And that's good news for Esmil Rogers. Doesn't have to face Miguel Cabrera tonight. Rogers is coming off a nice start versus the Red Sox. 6 shutout innings, had his sinker back that day. He was spinning a very nice breaking ball at the Red Sox. Also, for his career, this is his first start versus the Tigers after 6 relief appearances, and I haven't seen that good sinker from Rogers yet.
Take a look at the defense behind Esmil Rogers. Davis, Rasmus, and Bautista from left to right in the outfield. Meiser, Asturis at third, Reyes at short, Kawasaki back at second, Lind at first, and J.P. Arancibia is the catcher. He will flash the signs for Rogers.
We haven't had a chance to feature Jose Reyes, but he's played a great shortstop since he has come back, and I don't want to jinx him, but he hasn't made an error this season. He has looked great for the Blue Jays at shortstop.
A little overcast and no threats of rain, but you can see the roof at Rogers Center is not completely retracted. Austin Jackson, the leadoff man, he went 1 for 5 in the game last night. He steps in to face Esmil Rogers. Rogers is set. He was the first pitch of the ball game. Jackson goes after the first pitch and gets a single into center field.
While we have a minute, let's take a look at the scattering report brought to you by TD Bank, proud sponsors of your Toronto Blue Jays. Esmil Rogers will use that fastball 60% of the time. He'll use it to set up a lot of his pitches. His other pitches, I think he's got to pound that ball in on the right-handers. He'll use his changeup. Told you that his slider and his curveball were much better last time out. And that off-speed pitch in June, batters are hitting just 196 against it.
Andy Dirks is hitting second tonight. Dirks was in the 7th spot in last night's game. With Cabrera out, Torrey Hunter moves into the 3 spot for the Tigers, and Dirks takes the first pitch strike. Dirks was 0 for 4 in the game last night with a strikeout, batting .241 on the season. Tigers don't run a lot. Austin Jackson has 6 steals. Dirks right behind him. He too has 6 stolen bases.
He had a nice fake bluff on that first pitch to Dirks, just trying to measure and read Esmil Rogers over there at first base.
There's a drive into center. This is going to get down and go all the way to the wall. Austin Jackson is headed around third. He's going to score. Andy Dirks with an RBI double. And the Tigers jump out to an early 1-0 lead.
Problem that Esmil Rogers has had is when the fastball doesn't sink, That time, that ball right over the middle of the plate. And you can see Dirks, he's got a good short swing. Hit 300 for the Tigers last year in limited action. He splits the gap in left field with the good speed of Jackson. He's going to score easily from first base. And a couple of pitches into this one, and it's 1-0 Tigers.
So now Torrey Hunter will face Ismail Rogers. Hunter was hit by a pitch in last night's game in the 6th inning from Todd Redmond, and that's when the bench is cleared. Hunter was obviously upset. You could see he was upset by being hit by the pitch, but as Pat mentioned earlier, he was more upset by the hard slide earlier in the game by Colby Rasmus.
I think he was hurting part of that. I mean, that hurts to get hit where he did in the shoulder and in the arm area, plus up and in. And Redmond said he just got underneath the ball and it got away from him.
The Tigers got into a little bit of a beanball war with Tampa Bay over the weekend down in St. Petersburg, and in fact Rick Porcello hit Ben Zobrist on Sunday. And then after the emotions last night, you just wonder whether or not the pitchers are going to be aggressive inside. 2 pitches inside to Hunter, but they both missed. Oftentimes when umpires meet after a game like last night, they'll meet at home plate and they'll tell both teams, hey, no monkey business tonight. I just want to warn you, we're going to be on the alert. But we didn't appear to see any of that. Neither John Gibbons nor Jim Leland were involved in the umpire meeting at home.
Wouldn't it have been better or smarter? Just don't say anything after a game like that. That if you feel like you're upset, I think the worst thing you can do is go and talk about it after the game and kind of give away your game plan, what you're thinking for tomorrow.
No, I agree with that 100%. Nowadays, everything is on the news, everything is recorded, and everything is out there. 3-1 to Torrey Hunter. Bouncing ball. Dirks will go to third. Reyes to Lynn. Hunter is out. This is Rick Porcello pitching against the Rays in the first inning on Sunday. He hit Ben Zobrist, and in retaliation for a couple of pitches up and into Miguel Cabrera, Fernando Rodney, the closer, threw a couple of pitches upstairs inside, and Cabrera took exception, so Porcello hit Zobrist, and nobody knows what Porcello's intent was, obviously, but he has been suspended.
Yeah, did Cabrera get hit?
No.
He didn't get hit. So why didn't Zobrist just get buzzed up and in? Why did he have to get hit?
Might have been trying to buzz him. There's another base hit, and Dirks is going to come in to score. Prince Fielder drives in his 8th run against the Blue Jays this season.
4th in the American League in RBI starting this game, and he will add to that total right away. Another looked like a fastball with no sink to it. About thigh high over the middle of the plate. Esmil's going to have to get on that ball, on top of it a little bit more, and get it down. Catching too much of the plate there.
So it's 2-0 Tigers. Blue Jays haven't been able to avoid the big innings in this series. Tigers scored 4 in the second last night. They scored 6 in the second inning on Tuesday night. All the way back to the screen. Arancibia plays the Karen, but doesn't have a chance to make a throw on Fielder. Arancibia tried to backhand that ball and then went past him. It's ruled a wild pitch.
Pete Walker is out. Watch this one. It's a hard fastball or slider down and in, and Arancibia can't get over there to keep it in front of him. Goes back to the backstop. It looked like he might have had a shot at Fielder at second base. So Rogers a little bit shaky here in the first inning, so he's going to get a visit from the pitching coach.
Yeah, the Tigers have come out swinging. 2 singles and a double here in the first. They've taken a 2-0 lead, so Pete Walker felt like it was an opportunity to go out there and help Rogers regroup a little bit.
You know, again, and we've said this a few times already, the double play taken out, and you got the perfect guy at the plate right here, Victor Martinez. Double play taken out with that ball going back to the backstop. So now you got to dig in, and it'll probably cost you a few more pitches now.
Martinez hit that ground ball in the second in last night's game. That was a double play ball that went right through the legs of Bonifacio at second. That opened up the floodgates for that 4-run second inning. Victor Martinez in the series, we mentioned he's 4 of 13 with a homer and a double. He's also riding a mini 5-game hit streak. Prince Fielder at second. Off the plate. It's a tough lineup to work through. They're experienced hitters. They're patient. They have a game plan. And they don't really go away from their plan.
I just think Victor Martinez is going to add to this team when he starts to heat up. And it looks like he's starting to heat up a little bit in this series. He's going to give it a little bit more length. He's a switch hitter.
He drives this ball to left. Rajay Davis moves over, makes the catch. Martinez is retired. That's the second out of the inning.
Yeah, I like how Jim Leland gives him the green light. 3-0 in the first inning. He's an RBI guy. He's going to be counted on to drive in some runs, so he lets him swing away.
Shortstop Johnny Peralta has been a good run producer, and where you hit anywhere in this lineup, you're going to have guys on base all the time. Got great hitters all the way through the first 5 spots in the order. Peralta with 37 RBIs so far, batting with 2 outs. Well, the Tigers have staked Max Scherzer to a 4-0 lead last night. Now they have given Verlander an early lead as well. Two and 0. Justin Verlander hasn't won in his last 4 starts. Two and 0 count to Johnny Peralta. As a strike.
Rogers trying to figure things out right here. He was great in his last start. That was against Boston, 6 innings. Had that good sinker going. And he was spinning a good breaking ball. Right now, he just has to figure out a way to get the ball down against this good Tiger team.
There's the ball down. It was the breaking ball, and Peralta swung right over the top of it. Oftentimes it is a challenge for starting pitchers in that first inning just to get into the flow of the game, and Austin Jackson messed that up. He jumped on the first pitch for a base hit.
Yep, 3 pitches in. It was 1-0 with a runner at second base, and you're facing 3, 4, and 5, so you got to really scramble.
Peralta strikes out. The Tigers leave a base runner, but they scored 2 on 3 hits in the first. Justin Verlander will take them out, and he's going to face Jose Reyes, the leadoff man. Jose Bautista riding a 6-game hit streak, and Edwin Encarnacion back in the lineup, batting third. Jose Bautista back in right field, and Bautista's got a 6-game hit streak. 524, big numbers in that hit streak, including some power. 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. Colby Rasmus has had a good series against Detroit. He's 4 for 10. Double home run. He's driven in 5. And he'll have to get that big bat working tonight because they've got a tough right-hander on the mound, being Justin Verlander.
17 starts this year. You can see Verlander's numbers. Hasn't really been his dominant self yet this season, but feels a little tweaking of his mechanics. Might send him on his way. Paid off last start as Verlander pitched more than 7 innings for the first time this season. Still a really good ERA at 3.7, but his ERA is about a run better than that when he is on. Still won 8 games this year. Leland says his stuff was terrific last time out. See if he can carry over here.
Jose Reyes, the leadoff man, takes a ball downstairs. No, it's a strike. Jerry Lane with a very delayed call. Reyes is 3 for 4 in limited bats against Verlander. Changeup and a good one. Well, Verlander, just like Scherzer, has the full complement of pitches.
Yeah, he's not a guy who just rears back and just throws it as hard as he can. He's got a purpose for every pitch. He's got 3 outstanding pitches: the fastball, the curveball, and the changeup.
The little looper that Peralta, the shortstop's going to catch right behind the bag at second. Reyes is retired. Take a look at the defense behind Justin Verlander in the outfield. It's the same we've seen all series. Dirks, Jackson, and Hunter. Torrey Hunter with 9 gold gloves to his credit. Don Kelly starts at third base in place of Miguel Cabrera. Peralta and Santiago is at second in place of Omar Infante. Fielder and Avila. And Avila is teamed up with Verlander.
Miguel Cabrera had started every game this year for the Tigers at third base. So Don Kelly with his first start. Second game there. Second time we've seen him at third base. He came in for Cabrera the other night.
Jose Bautista takes the first pitch strike. There's Cabrera. We mentioned that this off night has nothing to do with his back. 2 nights ago he had to leave the game late, but he was in the lineup last night. Detroit played 3 games in Tampa Bay, also on artificial turf, so Jim Leyland felt like he didn't want to play 7 straight games on turf. It just really beats you up in your hamstrings and your back, so Cabrera gets the day off. They've got a 4-game weekend wraparound series in Cleveland against the Indians coming up.
Yeah, so why not give him a little bit time off, let him rest up a little bit. Like I said, he has played every game at third base this year for the Tigers. Same thing can be said for the guy on the other side of the diamond. Fielder has played every day.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Outside. Verlander, as we mentioned, always tough. Bautista has a home run against him. He's 3 for 10, but the last time he pitched in this ballpark, he threw a no-hitter. The only thing that kept him from throwing a perfect game was a J.P. Arancibia walk, and it was a terrific battle. Arancibia and Verlander was a 12-pitch at bat. Full count. Breaking ball lifted into center field. Austin Jackson has plenty of room. Verlander threw that breaking ball on the full count.
Got ahead 0-2, 3 fastballs missed, then threw a breaking ball. Let's take a look at the scouting report for Justin Verlander. There's the fastball about 55% of the time, but I said he's got the full complement. He'll use the changeup second most at 19%, and it's wicked. He had a great curveball, a little bit of a slider. For him, though, he says it's been a battle for me with my mechanics, just being able to repeat my delivery.
Edwin Encarnacion missed the 3 previous games in this series. Had hamstring problems, a bit of a wrist problem, but he is ready to go tonight. Outside, and Verlander still really hasn't zeroed in with his release point.
No, fastball, he's been yanking it over into that left-hander batter's box on his glove side.
Verlander falls behind Encarnacion 3-0. Adam Lind is on deck. A couple of lefty bats to follow Encarnacion.
You know, to show how Verlander has been off, his last start was the first time in his career that he gave up a lead-erasing home run in the 8th inning or later. I mean, this is a guy who just gets stronger and stronger as the game goes along.
Encarnacion fouls it straight back.
I mean, he's the kind of guy that sees the finish line when he's in the 7th or 8th inning, and he never gives up home runs late.
When we saw him throw that no-hitter back on May 7th of 2011, I mean, he was hitting 98, 99, and 100 late in the game. Full count to Encarnacion. He foul tips it into the glove of the catcher. Avila holds on to it. Verlander retires the side in order in his half of the first. Great streak in a bad streak. They won their first 11 games in that stretch with a good ERA. The last 10 games against Tampa Bay, Boston, and Detroit has been a different story.
ERA doubled since that first 11-game win streak there from 216 to 422. And the run differential, the offense, everything was clicking in that 11-game winning streak. Starting pitching, it always starts right there. That carried them, and the offense followed suit. They also hit 10 more home runs during that 11-game win streak than the 3 and 7 over the last 10.
Catcher Alex Avila moves up from the 9th spot into the 7th spot in the batting order. Avila homered and singled in last night's game. He also lined out sharply to first. He finished up the night 2 for 4 with a strikeout.
Did a little rehab in Toledo after coming off the disabled list. Tiger said that he was going to have to hit. He started off slowly there, then started getting it going. 5 for his last 13, a home run and 4 RBIs. So he's starting to swing it.
Bouncing ball, Kawasaki waits on it, and Avila is out, 1 down. Fans, if you want your baseball questions answered by our team of experts, email asktheexperts@sportsnet.ca and keep your eye out for the Home Hardware Ask the Experts segment later in the game. Rogers gets the first man he faces here in the second. Ramon Santiago starting for the first time in this series. Goes after the first pitch and pulls it foul. Santiago is a very valuable utility man. Jim Leland can put him anywhere he needs him. Start him at shortstop to give Peralta the day off. Takes over for the injured Omar Infante at second tonight.
He and Don Kelly, the batter on the on-deck circle, very valuable types of players for teams like the Tigers. They can play multiple positions and help you carry maybe an extra pitcher, or maybe an extra outfielder, maybe an extra catcher. But they know their roles. Jim Leyland says, okay, this is your job. They go out and do it.
2-1. Foul back.
And they know they're not superstars. They're going to play when the big boys need a day off.
Yeah, and they understand this is a good ball club. You always got a chance to go to the postseason, so keep yourself ready to play. Santiago is making his 16th start. He started now 10 times at second base. And he gets called out. Rogers gets the strikeout. His second strikeout of the night. He gets Santiago looking.
Looked like Santiago was not looking for the fastball, or he thought that one down. It was 93 and right at the bottom of the strike zone. Took him by surprise a little bit.
Here is Don Kelly. Kelly making his first start on the infield. As Pat mentioned, Cabrera plays every day at third base, but Kelly has started in the outfield at all three outfield positions.
Do you know, in his Tigers career, and he's been here for a few years, he has played every position but shortstop. He has pitched in a game. He has caught at least one time in a game. Played everywhere but shortstop.
He lines this to Reyes as that ball was hit hard, but Reyes going to his left. Spears the line drive. Dodgers retires the Tigers in order. Colby Erasmus will start things off. Formerly known as The Score, coming up after the ball game. It's a 30-minute interactive postgame show hosted by Eric Smith with former Blue Jays Paul Spaljarek and Gregor Halloran. They provide analysis of that night's game. Check out sportsnet.ca/360 for channel listings. It's the last time these two ball clubs will meet this regular season. Tigers have won the first two games. Two of the first three games of this series. They have a 4-2 advantage over the Blue Jays for the season series. Lind will start things off, followed by Rasmussen and Sturtis. Verlander missed away through that first pitch changeup. Lind returned to the lineup last night, had 3 strikeouts and an 0-for-4 night. Ball on a strike. Verlander was drafted in 2004, actually made it for big leagues in 2005. He was drafted out of Old Dominion in Virginia and made his major league debut on the 4th of July, 2005. He started game 2 of that 4th of July doubleheader at Cleveland and lost 6-0 to the Indians.
8 years ago today. That's when he made his big league debut.
Then strikes out, and all of a sudden the league is getting back to that pattern of throwing that high fastball to left. So Colby Rasmus, he has been the center of attention since post-game last night, talking about the hard slide he put on Omar Infante in the 4th inning of last night's game. And Rasmus' response to the criticism was, hey, that's the way I play. I was taught to play hard, and he took Infante out, and Infante had to leave the game with a leg injury.
He's been doing it all year, and that's how he was taught to play the game.
Rasmus goes after the first pitch, hits it high and deep to left, but Andy Dirks makes the catch with 1 foot on the warning track. 2 quick outs for Verlander here in the 2nd. He's retired 5 straight.
And I love Colby Rasmus's response. He said, no big deal. That's part of the game, too. Getting hit, I'll put a little ice on it, and I'll go about my business. Love that.
It's old school.
Yeah. That's what they have ice for in the clubhouse, right?
Meiser Isturiz. Isturiz has interesting numbers against Verlander. He's 11 for 27 against the big right-hander. He pops this one up into shallow center. Peralta out. Jackson coming in. The center fielder makes the catch. Verlander needs just 7 pitches to get through the 2nd. Tigers have a 2-0 lead. Last night, he did all the highlight playing with his glove.
Yeah, made 1 error all of last season, 137 games. 1 error this year. He's had the 3rd best defensive outfielder in American League last year. He showed why right there. Climbing that wall, taking away extra bases, and an RBI from JP Arancibia.
It came with 2 outs, and Mark DeRosa at 3rd in the 2nd inning. Blue Jays trying to answer a 4-run top half of that inning, and Jackson ended the inning with that fine catch.
Well, you better have a good center fielder if you want to think about winning. So many balls go from left center field, right center field, and balls that look like they're hits, extra bases, RBIs, runs, whatever. You got a center fielder who can run them down. Pitchers love that, and it just gets them right out of the inning. Just lifts them.
Austin Jackson is 2 for 2. He's seen 3 pitches tonight. Well, Max Scherzer, he improved to 13-0 last night, and he is off to one of the best starts since 1920. Dave McNally for the Orioles in '69 went 15-0. Johnny Allen, he went 15-0 for the Cleveland Indians, and of course we saw Roger Clemens in '86, Guidry in '78, finished up 25-3 that year.
Yeah, a couple of those guys won Cy Young awards the year they got off to those great starts, Guidry and Roger Clemens. I mean, he's almost a shoo-in to start the All-Star game now with what he has done.
Yeah, you would think that would be a natural given the fact that his Tiger manager is the American League manager for the All-Star team. But I think anybody would lean toward Scherzer. He's been so dominant. He's second in the major leagues in strikeouts to Yu Darvish. He had 8 more strikeouts last night and ran his streak to 17 starts with 6 or more strikeouts.
Wow, that's impressive.
Andy Dirks, the left fielder. 2 balls outside. Rogers just has to change his sights a bit. He has to move that ball over the outside edge. You can see Dirks has had a bit of a struggle. There's 2 for his last 21.
Doubled up the gap at left center field. Maybe try jamming him and see if he's thinking out over the plate.
Another pitch off the plate outside. Three 3-0. Torrey Hunter is on deck. Tigers already lead 2-0. Ball 4, 4-pitch walk. First 2 reach here in the 3rd.
Disney's The Lone Ranger, starring Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer. Now playing in theaters.
Beautiful evening in Toronto. Munenori Kawasaki, the second baseman, came in to encourage Rogers to throw some strikes. He and Rogers have become very close on this ball club, and Kawasaki went in there with a few words of encouragement. Torrey Hunter grounded out to shortstop his first time up. Breaking ball in there for a strike.
He's going to have to use that breaking ball. He got in trouble in the first inning by throwing too many fastballs. Pete Walker went out and talked to him and said, start mixing in the breaking ball. Got a fly out and a strikeout. Used it last inning, and now that was his first breaking ball of this inning.
And then he overcooks that slider and buries it in the dirt. Starting pitching is a real challenge. I think it's the toughest position in baseball. To be an effective starter, you've got to think on your feet, make adjustments on the fly, and be a strong physical pitcher. To stand up to the rigors of pitching every 5 days and hopefully throwing 100 pitches, maybe more.
Esmil's got the athletic part down. He is very athletic, probably the most athletic starter that the Blue Jays have right now. So he'll be able to repeat his delivery and learn pitches as he goes along. Right now, you're just seeing he's a little bit out of sync, and he doesn't know how to get back into it right now.
There'll be Johnson, Dickey, and Burley sitting on the bench. Burley is a perfect example of what you need to be as a starter. Torrey Hunter jumps on that pitch and hammers it to left. Jackson is around third. He's going to score. Dirks will stop at third. Torrey Hunter will get to second with a stand-up double. Top of the order doing damage against Rogers here early.
Yeah, they put him in a hole in the first inning right off the bat. And now here in the 3rd inning, slider, it just spins over the middle of the plate. You see not a lot of movement, not a lot on it. Torrey Hunter recognizes it early and hits it hard into the corner for another RBI and sets up Prince Fielder.
Fielder with an RBI single in the first. Goes after that first pitch. Fielder really hasn't hit full stride just yet. You can see his average at 270. He's doing the damage, obviously, with that 14 homers and 64 RBIs.
How many times has he come up now this year with nobody on base? 26. Because Cabrera has cleaned the plate 26 times. And he still has 64 RBIs.
Now Cabrera with the night off tonight. And he is the leader with 85 RBIs, 26 home runs and 85 RBIs on the 4th of July. 0-2 to Fielder. Another breaking ball. Aaron Sevilla squares it up, keeps it in front. (3-0) Detroit. Well, you stake good pitchers to an early lead, and they will wear you out. That's Avisail Garcia, the young outfielder that sits next to Miguel Cabrera whenever he has a chance to.
We have seen him now for 4 straight days together.
Fielder strikes out. Aaron Sevilla held on to the foul tip. And that'll bring Victor Martinez to the plate. Yesterday he had a big day at the plate, including a leadoff home run in the 5th.
Just missed one earlier. This is a breaking ball down. And Victor, a very good low ball hitter from the left side. Switch hitter from the left side. He can hit that ball as far as anybody. Well, he might be starting to heat up just a little bit. 42 RBIs for Martinez.
Well, here's an opportunity where Rogers really doesn't have to be aggressive. You can see the infield has shortened up there halfway with Martinez at the plate. You got a base open, and there's a right-handed bat on deck in Johnny Peralta. Starts him out with a breaking ball. Peralta struck out his first time up tonight. Victor Martinez is a terrific RBI guy. Last year, he drove in 103, and he finished 4th in the American League batting race, hit .330. 2 years ago, last year, of course, he was out with the knee problem, missed the entire season.
That's why I think his bat is going to play.
Good job by Rogers, and now he's going to run right at Dirks and puts the tag on him. There's that athleticism you were talking about. He took the comebacker and knew exactly what to do with it.
You get in front of the runner and run him back to the base and do it as fast as you can so the batter, Martinez, can't get into scoring position also. Comebacker, you got to be aware of this. They have the infield in. Rogers grabs it and watch him run in front of the runner to make sure he goes back to third, fakes, and then tags him. That's an athletic play right there.
Well, and another thing he did very effectively was he faked and then put the ball in his glove and tagged Dirks with the glove. He's a position player, so he understands those rundowns and executed it perfectly. Tigers have scored 1 here in the top of the 3rd. There are runners at the corners for Johnny Peralta. Mentioned he struck out against Rogers to end the 1st. Got to save these runners. Keep it a 3-run game.
You just never know. The runs you save now, later in the game, will look huge. Made a good pitch on Martinez to get him. I think he was just going to throw up breaking ball after breaking ball, and if he walked him, no big deal. Just trying to get Victor Martinez to get himself out, which he did. Now he can get out of this inning with just 1 run scoring.
There's a base hit by Peralta. Hunter is in to score. Bautista cuts it off. Victor Martinez is headed for third. The throw goes to second, not in time. And Johnny Peralta cashes in with 2 outs. It's 4-0 Tigers now. Peralta his 38th RBI as Hunter scores from third.
Made a couple of tough pitches to Jackson and then Hunter, and then just can't get this ball down and away from Peralta. Good RBI man, loves that ball away. Peralta likes that ball out there so he can do things with them. He got a base hit yesterday against Josh Johnson on a pitch, similar pitch, down and away.
Alex Avila. He drives one to center. Rasmus is there, and the inning is over. But the Tigers add 2 more runs in their half of the 3rd. They lead it 4-0.
Jays on Sportsnet, brought to you by the 2013 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 15 years in a row. Honda, the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Starter Esmil Rogers has been touched up for 4 runs on 6 hits early in this game. It appears to be a little bit frustrated, so the pitching coach Pete Walker comes in to try to calm the situation. As Pat mentioned earlier, Rogers had a very good outing last time out against the Red Sox at Fenway. 6 innings, 6 hits of shutout ball. That's a different story tonight, and he's just got to make better pitches.
That's all. Just get down a little bit more and get on top of that sinker so it sinks a little bit more, and he'll be okay.
Bottom third of the Blue Jays order set to take on Verlander here in the 3rd inning. First pitch breaking ball in there for a strike. Verlander, by his own admission, made some mechanical adjustments before his last start, just trying to level out his shoulder so he can get more consistency with his delivery.
Had a bullpen session, and Jeff Jones went back and looked at some of the film from a couple of years ago. He had that great season for the Tigers and felt like his shoulders were a little uneven. Made that little bit of an adjustment. Says his breaking ball was a little bit better, and his fastball command was a little bit better.
Rajay Davis drives it into center. Austin Jackson got a good break. Davis is retired. Fans, it's time now for our BlackBerry Sneak Peek Stat of the Game, brought to you by the new BlackBerry Z10 and Q10, built to keep you moving.
Well, it all has to do with opponent's batting average over the last 3 seasons for Justin Verlander. In that great year, hitters for the year hit under 200 against him, then just over 200 last year, all the way up to 263 this season. And there's nothing wrong with him physically. It doesn't look like he still has the great stuff.
This ball is popped down the right side. Torrey Hunter in foul ground has just enough room. 2 outs. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Well, the Rays had good news in that Astros series in that they got David Price back. He was great for his 7 innings. Gave up 3 hits, didn't walk a batter, and struck out 10. Then they came back the next night and had another shutout. They started to play well. Of course, Houston is having a tough season this year in their rebuilding year.
Yeah, they better take 3 out of 4 from Houston if they want to think about winning.
Chris Archer started that game for Tampa Bay. He went 6 innings, gave up 2 runs on 2 hits, and had 5 strikeouts. Munenori Kawasaki taps right back to the mound. Another inning for Verlander. 3 up, 3 down, just 7 pitches. Verlander is perfect through 3. We've got the Lady Jays when we come back to talk about this weekend's food drive. Food Banks Canada takes place all weekend long, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when the Blue Jays take on the Twins. Bring your non-perishable food items to gates 3, 5, 10. And there are also mystery bags available, and they'll be available for a donation of $25 or more. Call the Blue Jays at 416-341-1234. Log on to BlueJays.com, and we are pleased to be joined now by a couple of the lovely Lady Blue Jays. First, we're going to take a look at this pitch, but I'd take a look at the lovely Blue Jays.
Yeah,
guys.
me too.
Jilly McGowan and Megan Rasmus have joined us, and you're part of the Lady Jays that are going to put on the food drive. And Jilly, tell us about the food drive and what your goals are for this weekend.
You know, this is actually our 29th annual Lady Jays food drive, and it's in support of Food Banks Canada, which is a national charitable organization that supports food banks all across Canada. So our goal really is just to get as much non-perishable food items or monetary donations as we can.
So, Megan, tell us about the Lady Jays involvement, and where will you be during the weekend food drive?
We will actually be here 2 hours prior to the game, and then everything will close down game time.
So you'll be at the various gates to take on
Yes.
the donations?
3, 5, 6, 10, and 11.
And you're going to have your Blue Jays jersey on?
Absolutely.
But this has been something that's been ongoing, as you mentioned, Jilly. And Jilly, the whole point of it is that you want to give something back to the community. I know the Lady Jays have done this for a long time, and they take a lot of pride in how they can contribute to the community.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to do it, and we're just really excited, and we hope to get a good turnout and just have fun with it.
Who are some of the other wives that are involved heavily to get this thing off the ground?
Every Lady J is involved, and everybody puts in their effort. You'll see all of our faces this weekend at the gates, and we actually made a trip earlier this week to the North York Harvest Food Bank, and we learned a lot about the process, and we did some of the sorting ourselves.
Is there anything in particular, Megan, that would be better for a donation? Any type of food that is better for the food bank than another type of food?
Well, I think if you're going to bring food in, then just try to bring what you want at your family's table. You know, healthy's better. So if you're going to do that, then that would be great. But anything's appreciated.
Then how about money? I guess you'll always accept money.
Yeah, we'll always accept money. You know, that would be great.
Now, let me ask you this, and we're going to get off topic a little bit here. Jilly, let's talk first of all about Dustin and his road back, because I know you were right there standing behind him every step of the way, and you must be very pleased, especially the way he threw last night.
Yeah, you know, it was a long, hard road, but Dustin perseveres. That's what he does, and I knew that he would, and I couldn't be prouder of him.
And Megan, for you, you've made the adjustment coming up here to Toronto, and sometimes that can be a challenge, but I know Colby loves it here. How do you like your time here in Toronto?
I mean, so far it's been wonderful. You know, the fans have been great. Everybody's been really, really nice to us. I mean, everything's just been awesome. So
we get to see Colby every day. And Colby, as you know more than anybody, is pretty quiet. But does he bring the game home at night after the ball game?
You know, he does. He does sometimes, but usually we play our video games and we try to just chill out and leave it at the field, you know, good or bad game. So.
Well, tell us what he's like at home once he gets out of that baseball uniform.
I mean, he's just an all-around American boy, you know, honestly. He's good-hearted. He has fun and laughs and great dad. So, you know, it's what I get. I'm lucky.
If they didn't play baseball, your husbands, what do you think they would have been doing?
Oh, I know my husband would be hunting every day.
That's where I thought you would go with that one.
Yeah.
How about Dustin?
I'd say he would be definitely doing his fair share of golfing, but definitely involved in the sport somewhere, whether coaching or training. I don't know what he'd be doing, but he'd be doing something baseball.
Well, I can tell you this, and one thing I knew, I had Dustin in camp when I was managing when he was a first-year player, and we always felt like he was going to be an impact pitcher, and unfortunately the injuries, but now it looks like he's healthy again. Tell us how he feels about the way he's pitching right now.
You know, I think that we're just so grateful for every day, every opportunity, and we're superstitious people, so we just don't really talk about it and just go with how we're feeling that day, but so far so good.
Yeah, he's been awesome. I think everybody has been pulling for him all along, and of course, my pitching coach, Mark Connor, always asks about Dustin because he was really impressed when we first met him back early on. And once again, the Lady Jays, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are going to be at the gates, and you can donate food and money to help out the Lady Jays food drive.
Canned goods are a workable item, I assume?
Yes, anything non-perishable, so anything other than fresh produce or anything that needs to be refrigerated, canned goods, dry goods, anything of that nature. Rice, pasta.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter, yes. We sorted lots of peanut butter at the food
Did
bank
you really?
the other day, yeah.
Well, that's great. We want to wish you all the best, and we certainly thank you for joining us in the booth. And you have to admit, it wasn't quite as painful as you thought it was it?
It wasn't. It was our pleasure.
Yes, it was. Thank y'all so much.
Well, we thank you. We wish you nothing but the best, and hope everybody brings a lot of donations out this weekend. And thank you for your contribution to the Lady Jays food drive.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do it.
Thank
All right.
you.
The Lady Jays food drive will take place all weekend long, so make sure you come out to Rogers Center and make your donations. There's a line drive, and how about Colby? He just dropped it. That ball was sinking on him a little bit, and it went off the end of his glove. Looked like the Blue Jays were going to be out of the inning. But Andy Dirks reaches as that ball went off the glove of Colby Rasmus. It'll be an error for Colby, his second error of the season.
Dirks hits the ball hard, and a lot of times you'll see balls like that get out there and knuckle on those outfielders. Just cannot get it, close the glove. It looked like it got away from him, and it keeps the inning alive for the Tigers.
So now Kelly's at third and Dirks is at first. 2 outs. Torrey Hunter had an RBI double in the third. He's also grounded out to short. Rogers is going to have to pick up Rasmus right here and end this inning. Misses inside with the first pitch.
Not a bad idea right there. Torrey Hunter, when you get guys on base, especially in scoring position, he's hunting fastball early in the count. Rogers threw him a breaking ball.
Rogers from the set. Bouncing ball. Isturis comes in from third across the diamond in time, and Rogers ends the inning. So the Blue Jays get out of the inning. Tigers leave a pair. They still have a 4-0 lead. Justin Verlander right here at Rogers Center through his second career no-hitter. He gets the final out, and the celebration is on. And Justin Verlander said after that ball game, and in his post-game interviews, he felt like he had everything working that inning and for that game. And you can see tonight he's got everything working once again. No hits through 3 innings for Verlander.
He said that it made me the pitcher that I am today. For the first time in my career, I had to pitch or two that really wasn't working for him, but he was able to find it in that game as it went along. And that's what pitching is all about, being able to go to the mound at times without your great stuff, find it. And he was just dominant that day, and he found it.
Verlander now with 2 no-hitters. He's one of 4 pitchers that are active that have thrown 2 no-hitters. Mark Burley, Roy Halladay, Justin Verlander, and Homer Bailey, who just joined that group. So there are 4 active pitchers that have thrown 2 no-hitters, and of course Burley and Halladay have thrown perfect games as well. But it's an elite group and a very small group. Jose Reyes trying to get something going. Blue Jays are looking for their first base runner.
You know, he also said that felt like it matured him as a pitcher after throwing that no-no.
Bouncing ball, Peralta goes on the run. Nice play in time to get Reyes.
Verlander says he was able to use those lessons and move forward as a pitcher. He took his game to the next level. Won the Cy Young, won the MVP, did all of that. He has struck out 200 batters now. 4 straight seasons. I mean, he is in a different stratosphere when he is on his game.
Blue Jays are now 0 for 38 against Verlander, going back to that no-hitter. Bautista drives it hard to right, but Hunter has got a beat on him. 11 straight retired by Verlander to start this game. Edwin Encarnacion struck out his first time up. Verlander got him with a fastball.
You can see Avila go through all the signs like that. He did fastball, then he did slider, then he did fastball in, and then curveball and a changeup. So he's got all of them. And at least here through the first 3+ innings, he looks very confident in his fastball.
There's the first hit of the game by Edwin Encarnacion. The Blue Jays have a hit against Verlander. It was a high fastball, and he jumped on it and drove it into center field.
That's a pitch that Edwin can handle as long as he stays on top of it, doesn't try and get it in the air, just stay on top of it and hit a line drive. Fastball in, that's where they wanted it. It just leaked down a little bit too much over the plate. You see Avila have to reach back for it. Encarnacion with the Jays' first hit.
Next step, get the first run. 2 outs. We are in the bottom of the 4th inning. Tigers have a 4-0 lead.
Edwin really not a threat to run over there at first base with the hamstring problems that he's had. He's had a very small lead at first base. Surprised that they're holding him on.
Then chased that high fastball and struck out in the 2nd inning. That was a problem for him early in the season, chasing those borderline strikes upstairs.
Yep, swinging at everything. Then became very patient. Patient enough to get the pitcher back into the strike zone, and he was hitting it hard.
Hits this ball hard, but his slice is foul. Now Verlander once again ahead. 0-2 to Lind. Verlander, working with 2 outs in the 4th inning, has thrown just 38 pitches. He has just 2 strikeouts. Encarnacion wasn't going anywhere. He surprised Fielder with that throw.
Yeah, he's maybe 2 steps off the bag over there at first base. And Fielder's asking the dugout, do you want me to play behind him?
Then strikes out on the breaking ball. Verlander is through 4 innings. He's allowed just 1 hit. The Tigers have a 4-0 lead. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Craig Zahn in the Blackberry Broadcast Studio. with Mike Wilner after every Blue Jays game on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Mike Wilner along with Jerry Howard and Jack Morris in the Fan 590 radio booth. And you can hear Mike Wilner after every Jays game right on The Fan 590. Esmil Rogers trying to get things sorted out. The Tigers have scored 4 runs on 7 hits. Prince Fielder had an RBI single in the first. He struck out in the third. Fielder turned 29 on the 9th of May. Had 6 consecutive 30 or more home run seasons. And as Pat mentioned earlier, he's an Ironman. Of course, he grew up around baseball. His father, Cecil Fielder, became a big slugger when he went to Japan, came back and played with the Tigers, and then eventually had a 50 home run season.
Yeah, he has now played 426 consecutive games, which is the longest streak in the major leagues right now. He'll take the 4-pitch walk.
Rogers just out of sync from the start of this ball game, totally different than what we saw last time, and that's the challenge of being a starting pitcher. You don't get a chance to go out there every single day and work on your craft, and you never know what you're going to get from start to start. That's why the consistency of guys like Mark Burley is really impressive.
And talking to pitchers, I was never a pitcher, but talking to them, they say the hardest thing is to repeat your delivery. If you repeat your delivery, you're going to stay within yourself and your mechanics, and you'll be able to throw strikes consistently. That's why simple windups like Mark Burley's, which is a very simple, compact delivery, really helps you to stay within yourself and help you stay in the strike zone.
Yeah, and all 3 of those guys are good athletes, Johnson, Dickey, and Burley, and to be able to repeat your delivery every single time gives you an opportunity to throw more strikes. And that's the name of the game for a starting pitcher.
If you got a lot going on, if you've got a big turn or a high leg kick, or your arms are flailing all over the place, those are hard to just keep repeating those over and over again.
Victor Martinez has another base hit. Rajay Davis plays it on a hop. Martinez has had a big series. He had 2 hits in last night's game. That's his first hit tonight.
Rogers, when he is going well, he's a little bit more on top of the ball, and he's getting a little bit more downward movement on that slider. Looks almost like 3/4 tonight that he's not getting the timing down with his lower half and his upper half, where his arm catches up with his body and he stays on top of that baseball.
Johnny Peralta, RBI double in the 3rd inning. Well, you're right on about that delivery. It looks like he's rotating around his body, and when you do that, that will cause your elbow to drop. Your arm will get underneath it, and you lose the depth on your sinker first. Then you lose the depth on your breaking ball. It's a real challenge.
One of the things that you can do is throw more breaking balls.
Reyes, Kawasaki, Lynn double plays. Hard hit, but right to the shortstop, and Jose Reyes unloaded in a hurry and gave Kawasaki a good feed.
78th time this year the Jays have turned a double play. Reyes right on target to Kawasaki. That's tailor-made right there. Right at the shortstop. That'll help Esmil Rogers get a little confidence going for him.
Rogers stranded a pair of base runners in the 4th. Kept them off the board. Tigers scored 2 in the 1st and 2 in the 3rd. A little better depth on that breaking ball. Another good breaking ball, but this one's in the dirt.
Yeah, what you could do if you're getting underneath the ball like that, or you're throwing sidearm where your arm can't catch up, throw a couple of breaking balls. That'll just make your hand get on top of the baseball. Slow you down just a little bit.
It's 1-2 now. That first pitch was called a strike. 1 ball and 2 strikes. 2 outs in the 5th inning.
Beaver's got great power the other way. That was on display the other day when he first came in here. Popping the ball the other way, so you still have to be careful.
2 balls and 2 strikes to the Tiger catcher. Bounces it foul. Well, you're right. He has always been good out over the plate, and they stayed away from him, and he made him pay with a 3-run home run to left field.
Once that ball came back over the plate, when they made the adjustment, he was waiting for it.
Jerry Lane granted Avila time, and they're making sure everybody understands it's a 2-2 count. Scoreboard has 3-2, but that's not correct. There are 2 outs, fielders at third. Bouncing ball, Kawasaki deep at second, has time, and the inning is over. Rogers does a good job. The Tigers leave another base runner. When we come back, it'll be Colby Erasmus, who's had a good series, then Meiser Asturias, who's hit well against Verlander, and Rajay Davis. He officially begins tomorrow with players eligible to start signing as of noon Eastern Time. Sportsnet has you covered, starting with Hockey Central at noon on television, and at a special time of 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and on Sportsnet 590 The Fan starting at noon. Keep it on Sportsnet all day for the latest on NHL free agent signings. It all starts tomorrow. Lots of hockey fans will be keeping tabs on their favorite clubs to see who they might get in free agency. Colby Erasmus flied out to left field his first time up. Blue Jays have just 1 hit against Justin Verlander. That was a 2-out single by Edwin Encarnacion. Came in the 4th inning. Edwin's first game back. He missed the previous 3 games of the Tigers series.
Verlander trying to win a game for the first time since June 7th. 4 straight winless starts for Verlander.
Hard to believe with the offense that they have and the stuff that he features that he would go 4 starts without a win.
Yeah, hard to believe it. No decision at Kansas City, lost to Baltimore. No decision versus Boston and Tampa. And now he gets the Blue Jays.
Rasmus fouls it into the seats. 93. Verlander, when he's really good, he'll come out and throw the fastball 91 to 93. But he's always aware of getting his other pitches into the mix. And then as the game goes on, he seems to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, finds that a little extra. Well, a lot of extra. But this year, his average velocity on his fastball is at its lowest level in the last 3 years for Verlander. Just a tick over 92 and some change. I mean, he's usually 94 with his fastball, and that's the average velocity this season.
Well, Jack
Verlander.
Morris was asked about that, and he said, well, it's obviously not going to get better. You just have to learn how to pitch, and Verlander has done that. Now the curveball that Rasmus fouls off.
I think that's what makes him so special, because his curveball and his changeup are plus pitches.
Anytime you look on the record books with the Tigers in regard to pitching, you're going to see Verlander's name, and chances are right next to it, Jack Morris is going to be right there. Morris has many of the records that Verlander is chasing. Changeup squibbed off the end of the bat. That's going to trickle into foul territory. The catcher came out of the box quickly to make sure it didn't go back fair. When you look at Verlander's career, the last 8 seasons, he came into the league as a regular in 2006, and no one has more wins than Justin Verlander. CC Sabathia, Roy Halladay, Jared Weaver, a host of great pitchers, but Verlander's tops with his 132 wins.
Yeah, he takes the field, he makes his starts, he doesn't get injured, and he goes out there and wins. 132 wins over his last 8 seasons in the big leagues.
He also leads the majors in strikeouts over that period. He's ahead of CC Sabathia and Felix Hernandez in that department. He's third on starts since he became a regular in 2006. Bronson Arroyo of the Cincinnati Reds has made 250 starts. Then Dan Herron, and with 247, Verlander is third. Matt Cain of the Giants has 245, and he's 28 years old. Still many years in his prime.
You know what makes that so impressive about those guys and making starts? You've mentioned Bronson Arroyo,
Dan Herron,
and Dan Herron. This guy's a power pitcher, and he always has been a power pitcher, and he continues to make his starts and rack up all the big numbers.
Quite a battle going on between Verlander and Rasmus.
Bronson Arroyo, you know, he doesn't throw very hard, and he goes out there and he has to do it with smarts and guile. Verlander, power pitcher all the way with great secondary stuff.
Rasmus has fouled off 6 in this at bat. Full count. Make it 7.
11 pitch at bat. This is like the J.P. Arencibia at bat from that no-hitter a couple of years ago against Verlander.
Arencibia was the only base runner to reach against Verlander. He had a 12 pitch at bat that resulted in a walk.
And this is pitch number 12 right here to Colby in this at bat.
Squibbed off the end of the bat. Don Kelly at third. In time, Rasmus is retired after a long at bat. You see the cap Don Kelly is wearing. It's a special cap designed by New Era, the supplier for Major League Baseball, and it's a Stars and Stripes cap in honor of Independence Day as part of Major League Baseball's ongoing fundraising and awareness for initiatives for welcome back veterans. So every team in the major leagues is wearing a 4th of July cap. And their logo, that English D, is in Stars and Stripes. And in honor of the Welcome Back initiative, everybody around baseball is wearing a special cap today on the 4th of July.
Gray for the visitors, white for the home team. There's the Blue Jays cap.
Kind of sharp. No surprise they wear white caps with the baseball and everything, but it looks good. Of course, on Monday, the Blue Jays had their red Canada Day jerseys. Meiser Asturias bats with 1 out. Asturias popped up to center field his first time up. Blue Jays have had just 1 base runner. That was the single by Edwin Encarnacion. What would you do if you were facing Verlander? What would your approach be as a right-handed hitter against him?
I'd go to the manager and tell him that my foot hurts or my hand hurts. Yeah, I'm not feeling too good today, and I'll get in there against that lefty tomorrow.
The Verlander flu.
That's right. You know, he's got so many pitches, and he's very smart, too. I'm watching him here. He's not falling into any patterns right now, pitching these batters. It looks like his fastball, he's starting to feel it right now. He's getting loose as this game goes along, and he's starting to use it just a little bit more. I think I'd just look for 1 pitch until I got the 2 strikes.
Bouncing ball up the middle. Santiago from second. Not in time. Asturias. An infield hit. Ramon Santiago ranged far to his right. But the throw didn't get there in time.
Yeah, just couldn't get enough on that throw to get Asturias, and he continues to handle Justin Verlander in his career. Hit it in a good spot. Big fastball right there from Verlander, and Santiago really playing in the pole. And the replay one more time on the super slow-mo. You can see Asturias beats it for another hit against Verlander.
He's now 12 for 29 against the Tigers' big right-hander. So 4.13 average. Rajai Davis trying to put something together here in the 5th. Tigers have a 4-0 lead. At the end of the bat, that breaking ball outside. Davis reached for it and fouled it. Yeah, he can be a challenge, obviously, given his record. We just showed you that he has more wins than anybody since 2006. Most pitchers, you can figure out 1 pitch on a given night and say, okay, I'm going to look for this pitch. But Verlander, first of all, he can throw the changeup just about any time he wants to.
It's a deadly combination. His fastball and his changeup, just those 2 pitches.
Verlander was the number 2 pick overall in the 2004 draft.
Yeah, the Tigers can send out a big thank you to the San Diego Padres for passing on Verlander.
How about that? They took Matt Bush, who never really made it to big leagues and most recently ran into a lot of trouble with the Tampa Bay Rays off the field.
He was in the Blue Jays organization for a couple of years.
It's a called strike right at the bottom of the zone. But Verlander was number 2. Philip Humber, number 3 by the Mets. Homer Bailey, number 7 by the Reds. And Jared Weaver, number 12 by the Angels. That's a pretty good draft. The first 12 spots, you get 4 pitchers like that.
What do all 4 of those pitchers have in common?
They've all thrown no-hitters, which is pretty interesting. Verlander's thrown 2. Philip Humber threw a perfect game in 2012. Homer Bailey this week threw his 2nd no-hitter. Jared Weaver no-hit the Twins in 2012. So that class has more no-hitters than any class except the class of 1965. And we know why 1965 is special. That was Nolan Ryan's class, and he alone had 7 no-hitters. So the Blue Jays get a couple of base runners aboard, a single and a walk. Now J.P. Arencibia trying to keep it going.
Just concentrate on hitting the ball squarely and hitting it out front. Verlander is going to supply the power. You just make sure you're on time to hit that fastball.
Well, what's the old saying? You don't try to hit it far, just try to hit it hard. And if you hit it hard, chances are it will go far.
Yep. When you have the type of power Eric Sebia has. Little meeting on the mound right there with Verlander. This is the first batter that the Blue Jays have gotten to second base tonight, so they just want to get together and talk about the signs.
147 this season with runners in scoring position. Fly ball into center. Isturis goes back to second to tag. He'll move over to third. Davis retreats to first, but now there are 2 outs.
On July 19th, they're still retired and extremely dangerous.
Tell me that's a stick of dynamite in your pocket.
It's emergencies. Red 2, July 19th.
CN Tower high above the Rogers Center. Roof is open, and it is a beautiful night for baseball. This is the final game between the Tigers and the Blue Jays this season. Tigers have a 4-2 advantage in the season series. Munenori Kawasaki tapped back to the mound his first time up. Kawasaki with a big home run cut. Spun himself into the ground at home plate.
Verlander took a little something off right there. Really had Kawasaki out in front. You can see him way out there. And down he goes. Surprised a little bit that Rajay Davis is still over there at first base.
Yeah, I am. Even though they're down by 4, if Davis gets a break, it's hard to throw him out. Not running. Kawasaki lifts it into left field. Andy Dirks coming in quickly. And the inning is over. Blue Jays strand a pair. They've left 3 on. They're being shut out by Verlander 4-0. Here comes the Home Hardware Cleanup Crew, brought to you by Natura. Home Hardware's exclusive line of safe, environmentally friendly cleaning products. Blue Jay fans, Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion need your help. Let's make them both starters for the American League All-Star team. On Twitter, use the hashtag ReelectJose and hashtag VoteEdwin. Fans are allowed to vote a maximum of 25 times per email address. Voting ends tonight. Just a few hours left, so make sure you log on and vote for Jose and Edwin. Vote early, vote often. Vote at BlueJays.com. Winding down, and the last time they tabulated the votes, Bautista was third in the outfield voting in the American League.
Let's get him in there. We got 3 hours and 20 minutes, so just keep tapping that Jose Bautista spot there. Get him in. Let's get Edwin in there also.
Log on and you can vote 25 times per email address, and make sure you put in a good effort. You can bet other clubs' fans are doing the same to try to get their players in that starting role. So let's get Bautista and Encarnacion into the starting lineup for Jim Leyland at Citi Field in the All-Star game. One ball, 2 strikes to Ramon Santiago, filling in for the injured Omar Infante. Infante had an MRI after the game last night, and fortunately it had nothing to do with his knee. I'm sure he's got a nasty bruise and a very sore leg, and hopefully he'll be back in a couple of days. He's a key part of their team.
Swinging a hot bat. He had a good series here against the Blue Jays before he was hurt yesterday.
3-2. This is where you really have to focus and make sure you handle the bottom part of the Tigers lineup. You don't want to put them on base ahead of the top of the order.
And do it as quickly as possible so you can pitch a couple of more innings. Stay in this game, stay around long enough, give yourself a chance to win. The offense can come back. What you don't want to do is have a long inning pitch-wise, bottom of the lineup, and then you're finished.
Santiago fouls another ball into the seats. Great crowd on hand tonight at Rogers Center, 35,978. Tigers have always been a great draw in Toronto. Certainly a lot of Tiger fans make their way to Toronto, and Santiago has a leadoff single for the Tigers here in the 6th. Remember, log on to vote for Bautista and Encarnacion, and the last time the votes were tabulated, Mike Trout had a comfortable lead over Adam Jones of the Orioles, and then Bautista has a narrow lead over Nick Markakis. And you can bet the Baltimore fans are going to get on the computers and try to get Markakis into that 3rd spot. Those top 3 vote getters will start the All-Star game.
I think you can say the same thing about the Tiger fans trying to get Torrey Hunter in. So Bautista just a narrow, slim margin right now.
So log on and cast your votes for Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion before midnight tonight. There goes the runner. The hit and run's on, and it's executed perfectly. Reyes had coverage because you figure that a base hit to left, you're only going to go to second. So 2 on, nobody out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Henderson Alvarez hasn't walked a batter. He has 2 strikeouts in 4 innings of work. He's up against Julio Teheran of the Atlanta Braves. Freddie Freeman, a couple more RBIs tonight. He's got 56 ribbies, and he's doing it without the benefit of many home runs.
That's a tough ballpark to hit home runs in Atlanta. You have to have that double stroke, that opposite field stroke, and Freeman has that. Braves are a good team.
They're a good team with just enough and struggling right now. He's down to 247. Austin Jackson fouls it along the right side into the seats. Ian Wagner, the right-hander, starts to throw for the Blue Jays in their bullpen. Aaron Seve is out with a visit and a message for his pitcher. Talk about that hit and run a little bit. Santiago was on the move. Kelly's a left-handed bat, but Reyes had coverage, and they executed him perfectly. But you figure that if it's a base hit the left field, the runner is not going to have a chance to go first to third.
And Rajai Davis in left field was not playing very deep with Kelly. This is a perfect time to run right there. Figure you'd get a fastball even if he doesn't execute it, if he doesn't find a hole, he makes contact, he hits the ball on the ground. You got Santiago in scoring position for Jackson and Dirks, and you try and just get an add-on run. That's what Jim Leland is thinking about right here, an add-on run. They've left 6 players on base already. Let's see if I can try and get one here.
Jackson slices that breaking ball down the right side.
And if you're lucky and you find a hole and you guess right and you hit it where that infielder is covering, now you can play for the big inning. And that's what they're doing with Jackson. He came into this series. Minimum of 100 at plate appearances, the highest batting average against the Blue Jays out of anybody. A couple of hits tonight.
Santiago had a big lead, and Rogers just stared him back to second, making sure he didn't get off too far. Of course, every foot that you save at second might get you an out at home, so you want to make sure that base runner doesn't get a huge lead. 1-2. Fouled off Aaron Sebia. J.P. Sebia will have his bobblehead doll given away on Sunday, July 7th. Twins are in town. That's a 3-game series. And then the Blue Jays will have an off day on Monday before they go out on the road. They go to Cleveland and Baltimore to wrap up the first half of the season before the All-Star break. Nobody out. 6th inning. Ground ball through the left side. They're waving Santiago home. Here's the throw from Davis. It's high and all the way back to the screen. Rogers is backing up. Davis threw the high throw from left field, and it went over everything. Jackson picks up his 3rd hit of the night. 3 hits in the inning.
Look at that ball. It's just kind of spinning up there to Austin Jackson, and he's swinging the hot bat right now. He finds the hole on the left side. Davis comes hard charging, and let's go high over everybody. He's lucky that that ball came back to Rogers, or the runners would have moved up.
So Esmir Rogers is out of the game. He faced 3 in the 6th. He'll go 5 innings. Neil Wagner in. Neil Wagner is into the ball game. This is his 16th appearance. He took the loss on Tuesday night for just 2/3 of an inning, but gave up an infield single to Torrey Hunter, who drove in the winning run. Wagner gets ahead of Andy Dirks. Dirks has been on base all 3 times. He doubled in the first, walked in the third, and reached on an error in the fourth.
The Tigers made life tough tonight for the Blue Jays. 3 hits to start this inning. They've had 11 hits, and again, they've left 6 runners on base. Esmil Rogers just wasn't able to get that finishing touch on his pitches.
Tonight was just his 7th start of the season, 3rd start at home. He pitched very well in this ballpark, but tonight was a different story. He is charged with 5 runs so far. The 2 runners on base are his responsibility. There's a drive into center field. Rasmus has room, makes the catch. Tagging is Kelly. The throw goes to third, and both runners move up. Boy, that's not a good play at all. You didn't have a legitimate shot at Kelly, and by throwing it to third, you allowed Jackson to tag at first and move up. That takes you out of that double play situation.
Yeah, when a ball's hit that deep, and Kelly can run just a little bit, he reads it all away, tags up. Really no chance to get him at third. Heads up play by Jackson. He's just watching this play. It's right in front of him. Ball's got to come into second base, keep the double play in order, and then you get out of the inning with just 1 run scoring.
Yeah, you give the Tigers another golden opportunity. If you keep Jackson at first, you got the double play. Might get you out in. Torrey Hunter waves at that first pitch. I mean, Jackson, he just made a baseball play. I don't think it was anything exceptional. He saw the fly ball, and these guys are thinking about going to the postseason again. So they take advantage of every opportunity they get. They always run with their heads up, and Jackson just took advantage of a bad throw by Rasmus. Ball and a strike, 1 out. Neil Wagner in relief of Esmil Rogers. Kelly now at third base. Austin Jackson at second. Boy, Torrey Hunter, he's just waiting back, not anxious to get out in front, just wants to drive something to the opposite field.
Good hitters will do that in situations like this. A couple of runners on, the infield is in. What you don't want to do, you don't want to strike out. So you really want to wait as long as you can. If you hit the ball the other way, that's okay. Pick yourself up a couple of RBIs, but you don't want to commit too soon.
Good pitch inside, moved him back. Wagner came in the ballgame inheriting 2 base runners. He's allowed 1 to score. Kelly is his responsibility as far as an inherited base runner. He's been good so far this season. That's just the 2nd that he's allowed. He has now inherited 11 base runners. Missed with that pitch. Full count to Torrey Hunter. Of course, Prince Fielder is on deck. Doesn't get any easier after Hunter. This is a relentless attack. The Tigers just keep coming at you. Breaking ball into center. Rasmus on the run. He'll make the catch. Kelly tags. He'll come in to score from third. Austin Jackson goes from second to third. And Hunter picks up another RBI. He's got 2 on the night. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership.
You mentioned the Tiger offense and being relentless. They just have a bunch of professional hitters. Guys who have been around and who understand the game offensively.
Reyes is deep at short. He's got to throw quickly, and he throws it away. Austin Jackson comes in to score. Reyes was deep because of Fielder's power, and the ball was bounced over the mound. Jackson scores. It's an infield hit for Prince Fielder. He'll pick up another RBI.
Number 65 on the season. You can see Reyes is playing deep. No chance for Wagner to get it. Here comes Jose on the short hop. And then unloads over the head of Lind. And another run will score. 3 this inning. So the Tigers are cashing those runners.
Blue Jays just haven't been able to avoid those crooked numbers. 2 in the first, 2 in the third, and now 3 here in the 6th. Fielder, his second RBI of the night. Victor Martinez goes after the first pitch. Kawasaki throws him out. The inning is over. But the Tigers have expanded their lead to 7-0. Blue Jays have a lot of work to do against the tough pitcher. Chairs in the TD Comfort Zone. Our folks enjoying a seat upgrade courtesy of TD. Congratulations and enjoy the great game. And over in the Jays Care Community Clubhouse are some very special guests from Right to Play. Welcome to Rogers Center. Hope you're having a great time, and hopefully the Blue Jays can mount a comeback in this ball game. They trail Justin Verlander and the Tigers 7-0. Jose Reyes will bat for a 3rd time tonight. He has lined out and grounded out. Blue Jays have had just 3 base runners, 2 singles and a walk. There's a base hit. Reyes sat back and got the breaking ball and hammered it into right. Esmail Rogers made his 7th start of the season here tonight, and it was a rough outing. Rogers goes 5 innings plus 3 batters. He's charged with 7 earned runs on 11 hits, walked 2, struck out 4 through 94 pitches, and the Tigers jumped on him early. First 2 batters of the ball game had a couple of hits, and they scored 2 runs in the first.
First pitch of the game to Austin Jackson was hit hard, and a couple of runners scored. Just couldn't finish off innings when he was in tough spots. Just didn't have that pitch to go to. Didn't have the type of breaking ball he had his last outing also in Boston when he threw 6 shutout innings.
Jose Bautista, right fielder, has gone over 2. Verlander makes it tough. How do you think Scherzer and Verlander feed off one another?
I think back to back, and that's important that they're back to back. That Verlander was sitting around yesterday watching Max Scherzer work and came right after him. And you know it just feeds off of that. it's almost like a challenge. Scherzer's undefeated. I want to match him. I mean, that's what teammates do. You've seen that and heard that from starting. We've seen whole starting staffs do that.
Yeah, we always talk about hitting being contagious. I think pitching is contagious as well. When the Blue Jays won that 11 straight games, the starting pitchers kind of met personal challenges night after night. Guy ahead of them threw a good game. They wanted to back it up.
That's what it's called, competing. You're out there to compete. And the good ones find reasons to compete. Oh, you threw a shutout? Watch me tonight. I'm going to do the same thing. And it's nothing to do with, being jealous of your teammate or anything. It's just competing.
Friendly competition. Athletes compete at everything they do. Doug Fister was able to get around a 4-run first inning in his start. Bautista didn't like that call, and he's letting the umpire know. And Jerry Lane had some words for him. Bautista is called out on the inside breaking ball.
Verlander looked like a curveball right over the top, and he snaps off a good one. Bautista, a little bit of a disagreement with the home plate umpire.
You see where pitch tracks had the pitch right at the bottom of the strike zone. That's 4 strikeouts now for Verlander. Edwin Encarnacion got the first hit off Verlander, came with 2 outs in the 4th inning. His first game, he missed the first 3 games of this series with a hamstring injury and a wrist injury. We saw that pop up in the final game in Boston.
Playing every day, every inning. He's played third. He has played first. He is DH'd. DH'ing just to rest that hamstring. Bothered. You get those little nicks every year when you play every single day. Your wrist might hurt, your ankle might hurt, hamstring, whatever it is. Just go out there and just keep playing.
That's why I never played every day, Pat. I just didn't want to have any of those aches and pains.
What makes it, and you do, by September, you feel like you're ready to go hibernate for the winter.
I think being an everyday player in the major leagues is a real challenge.
That's
mentally probably more than anything.
Makes what Cal Ripken did.
Unbelievable.
Hard to fathom. And for, I believe it was something like the first 10 years of Cal Ripken's streak, he never took an inning off.
Foul ball.
And remember, he used to take infield?
Yeah.
He was out there every day.
Never took infield off, never took batting practice off. And he always said, I talked to him a lot about the streak, he always said, it's my job. You come to work, you put on your work clothes, and you go to work. And, of course, his father, Cal Ripken Sr., instilled that work ethic.
Yeah. And he didn't feel 100% every day. I remember there was a time where his ankle was all swollen and his streak was going to get broken, but he went out there, taped it up, and played. And didn't worry about, I'm going to take batting practice off because I might get tired. I mean, he never worried about that. He just went out and played.
One of my teammates in Kansas City was Hal McCray, who was one of the best DHs in the game. He always said, I got all winter to rest. Full count, 1 out. Edwin fouls it back over the screen. Remember, we want you to log on to BlueJays.com before midnight tonight and cast your vote for Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Bautista for a spot on the All-Star team. You have up until 11:59 tonight to cast your vote. You can do it at BlueJays.com. So log on and cast your vote for Encarnacion and Bautista and make them starters for the All-Star game.
Wow, what an at-bat by Edwin. Verlander showed him everything in his toolbox, and Encarnacion was biting on that breaking ball 3-2.
Second walk of the game issued by Verlander. Reyes had a leadoff single. Bautista was called out on strikes. A reminder, the Cardinals are taking on the Angels now on Sportsnet 1. The Angels had their 7-game win streak come to an end last night at the hands of the Cardinals. Lynn takes one inside off the plate. Blue Jays trying to break through against Justin Verlander, making his first start at Rogers Center since May 7, 2011, when he threw the no-hitter. Lind in that ball game initially injured his back, and that would cause him problems throughout the remainder of that 2011 season.
Hit a little bit last year. Said he reached for a ball, stretched for a ball at first base, and felt a little popping sensation in his back. Took him a little bit of time to get back to 100%.
Reyes at second. Verlander just kind of, to change the timing of things, stepped off the mound, had a look at him. Tigers have scored 7 runs on 12 hits. And fouls it back. Blue Jays have really run into a rough patch after their 11-game win streak. They've won just 3 of their last 10 games.
And also trying to win this game so they don't lose a 3rd consecutive series.
Well, that's what they did so well during that 11-game win streak, obviously. And they won 6 straight at home, swept the entire homestand against Colorado and Baltimore. Then went out on the road to Tampa Bay and Boston and really had a tough trip. Just 2-5 on that road trip, and now they've lost 2 of the first 3 in this 4-game series to the Tigers. .97. There's that velocity we said would probably peak a little bit later on in the game.
Yeah, it's almost like he paces himself early in the game and shows you just enough fastball to get you out. Maybe use your curveball and change up a little bit early. But when you get into these types of situations later in the ball game, a couple of guys on, you've got a little bit more reserve where he can reach back.
2 balls and 2 strikes. Verlander to second. Peralta back to first. Double play. Verlander did a good job of making a good throw to start that 1-6-3 double play and get him out of a jam. We played 6 at Rogers Center. It's all Tigers. Series. Of course, the Minnesota Twins will be in town, and that'll be a 3-game set. Then after an off day on Monday, Tuesday through Thursday, they'll be in Cleveland, take on the Indians, and then they'll finish up the first half right before the All-Star break in Baltimore. And then Tampa Bay and the Dodgers come to town. How about the Dodgers starting to make a move? Yasiel Puig, the rookie right fielder, really making some noise in the National League. He had to leave the game last night after slamming into the wall at Coors Field. Made a terrific catch and hit the wall out there, and looked like he really bruised his quad muscle, thigh muscle. Left the ball game. But my question to you, Mr. Tapper. No.
I know what you're going to ask me.
We have worked so long together, you know what I'm thinking.
No, I don't think he deserves to make it to the All-Star game. For what? 3 weeks? 4 weeks?
He was the Rookie of the Month and the Player of the Month for the first time in the history of those awards. He won both National League Rookie of the Month and Player of the Month. So you're saying 1 month does not constitute an all-star berth?
No, I don't think so. I think there are other guys who have been up here in the major leagues doing their thing for 3 months who deserve to go to the All-Star game over a guy who's been hot for a month.
Wagner strikes out Johnny Peralta, but wait a minute. He plays in Hollywood.
Yeah, and?
Well, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I just, I think it's a sensational story, and I think it's great for baseball. I think it's great for the Dodgers and the National League and all that kind of stuff. But then to say, hey, he belongs in the All-Star game because he's been hot for a while.
Yeah. Now, he has been hot for a while. There's no question about that. He looks like a terrific player. He's 6'3" and weighs 245. And he can run. He scored from second base on a ground ball, the infield in Colorado, and scored standing up. He's fun, and make sure you put that on your calendar. The Dodgers will be here at Rogers Center, and you get a chance to see one of the best young players in all of baseball.
I think that's fantastic. We'll probably see Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke and Kenley Jansen and some of the other great stars, Matt Kemp. But I think there's going to be, if Puig's as good as everybody says he is, he's going to be in all-star games in the future. Probably going to win Rookie of the Year, the whole thing. But you know where I stand on that one now.
I stand in the same spot. I agree with you. He's had 109 at-bats. He's hitting 440, mind you, but I don't think that's worthy of an all-star berth. Take something away from the guy that's played the entire season. Puig has 8 home runs, 18 RBIs. 7 doubles and a triple in 28 games. Played 1 month.
Amazing. Yeah. He started in Double-A and opened up everybody's eyes in spring training. And he just knocked the cover off the ball in March.
Wagner strikes out the first 2 he faces here in the 7th. But the All-Star game is always a lot of fun. At this time of the year, you start to talk about who should make it and who will be left out. Avila strikes out on that high fastball. Puig tried to defect 6 to 7 times from Cuba, and he failed every time. In fact, one time he was caught in Rotterdam during the World Cup Junior Tournament. Kawasaki with a bobble, and Santiago is thrown out. Good inning for Neil Wagner. We will continue that Puig story when we come back. 7-0 Tigers. Blue Jays set to hit bottom of the 7th. Smooth move of the game brought to you by Bacardi Oakart Smooth Spiced Rum. Bacardi is a proud partner of the Toronto Blue Jays.
We talk about Justin Verlander and all his success on the mound as a pitcher, but how about as a fielder? He's just a good athlete. He starts that 1-6-3 double play off the bat of Adam Lennon. This is a nice athletic play. Gathers himself, throws a strike to Peralta to get it going. Verlander doing it with his arm and his glove here tonight.
So Peralta, with that off-balance throw, threw a strike to start that double play. Prince Fielder handled it effortlessly. Colby Rasmus to lead things off. But Rasmus is Sturis and Davis to face Verlander in the seventh. Rasmus has flied out and grounded out in his 2 trips tonight.
He had an outstanding at bat against Verlander last time up before grounding out. 12 pitch at bat. So a little bit of everything from Mr. Verlander.
Curveball missed inside. The Tigers have combined to throw 4 shutouts this year. Anibal Sanchez, who will start on Saturday coming off the DL, he's the only pitcher to throw a complete game shutout. He has 1. But that doesn't seem to be as significant in this day and age as it once was. Off the end of the bat. Santiago waits on it, throws to Fielder. Talking about Yasiel Puig. He will be here with the Dodgers when they make their visit to Rogers Center. But he had tried several times to defect from Cuba. So much so that he was banned to play baseball. The last time he tried to defect in Rotterdam, he was caught. And the other player that was defecting with him at that time escaped and eventually signed a contract with the Cubs. Gerardo Concepcion left and signed. He's a left-handed pitcher and signed with the Cubs for $6 million. So Puig was really determined then, so he goes back. He defects to Mexico and has his tryout. And all the scouts were there. But he didn't play well because he hadn't played in a year. He'd been banned from playing in Cuba. So everybody that saw him said, oh, he can't play, except the Dodgers.
Yeah.
The Dodgers saw him, they were impressed, and signed him to a 7-year, $42 million deal.
They must have been a little bit impressed for $42 million.
Well, the Dodgers were very impressed. I mean, they were the one team that just stood there and said, you know what, he looks like he's rusty. He's physically imposing, 6'3", 245. So they signed him, and boy, it didn't take him long to get to the big leagues. I'm anxious to see him. Should be fun. Meister Asturias works the count even at 2-2. Full count. Well, the Blue Jays had worked so hard, put that 11-game win streak together to get over 500 and close ground. They find themselves now 10 back in the AL East. Boston got a walk-off home run from Johnny Gomes last night.
And they had cut that all the way down to what, 5 games? As a little timeout there. Verlander's got a little shoe repair. Yeah, you work so hard to get to 500. You get a couple of games over 500. You get the lead down to 5. You just have to keep going. You just got to keep the pedal to the metal. And it's been tough for the Jays.
Asturias hits it to Peralta. Makes a nice play. Throws him out from behind second. 2 down. Mentioned Johnny Peralta might not be flashy, but he's steady and sure-handed.
Does a good job on this turf. He's got those long arms and can reach down and pluck that ball away from him. If he gets to it, he'll catch it and record the out. Just 4 errors he has made this year. Playing every day.
Rajai Davis reached base with a walk in the 5th. 97 pitches for Verlander. Davis didn't mean to and fouls it off. The Tigers coming into play tonight with a 1/2 game lead over the Indians in the AL Central. They will meet the Indians in a wraparound 4-game series that finish up on Monday in Cleveland. That'll wrap up their 11-game road trip. Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Cleveland. Bouncing ball. That ball is foul. Davis was out of the box in a hurry.
So they miss Verlander, the Cleveland Indians. But they do get Anibal Sanchez, who's coming off the disabled list.
Jim Leyland making his plans, obviously, as he gets closer to the All-Star break. Not only does he have to think about his team, but he's got to select the All-Star team and then go to New York and participate in all those festivities. 1-2, 2 outs. Late hack, but he gets to that breaking ball to stay alive. Verlander was upset with the location. That was a wipeout pitch. He wanted the at-bat to end right there, but he left the breaking ball inside.
So he could come out and pitch the 8th inning. Now he's got to go back to work.
That's where he wanted it, and he strikes out Rajai Davis, his 5th strikeout. Blue Jays go down in order in the 7th. Like to thank Tom Cheek for his induction into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame and being selected as the 2013 Ford C. Frick Award recipient. Fans are encouraged to send their favorite Tom Cheek memory or moment to BlueJays.com/Tom Cheek. These memories, moments, stories, and wishes will be shared with the Cheek family in early August. Great opportunity for you to share some of your thoughts about the late Tom Cheek. Emilio Bonifacio comes into the ball game. He takes over at second. With that, Munenori Kawasaki moves from second to short. Jose Reyes is out of the game. There's Kawasaki at shortstop.
Good time to get Reyes off his feet. He's played pretty much every inning of every game since coming off the disabled list. Get him off this turf for a couple of innings.
Don Kelly's had a productive night. He has started this game in place of Miguel Cabrera, who was given the night off by Jim Lehman. That is a fair ball. Kelly has his third hit. Bautista plays it off the wall. He has a little bobble and he can't make a throw. Don Kelly has a double. His fourth double of the season, part of a 3-hit night for Kelly.
How about that? Jim Leyland pulling all the right moves out for the Tigers. He gives Cabrera the day off schedule, puts in Don Kelly. He's rewarded with 3 base hits. A couple of singles and this double. Down and in. The danger spot to a lefty. Golfs it down the right field line.
Well, that's all on Don Kelly. He knows he's not going to play a lot, but he works hard to keep himself ready, and when his number is called, he makes the most of it. It's hard to be an extra man when you ever come out and get hits. I think the one thing you have to do on good teams like the Tigers is make sure you don't lose games with your defense. Play good defense first and foremost. Whatever you do with the bat's a bonus.
As an extra man, make sure you catch the baseball. And when you get your chance, get up there and swing. Yeah. You only have 3 swings each at bat. Take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's not an eye test. You're not up there to see how well you see the ball. Get some hits in. Don Kelly, a 3-for-4 night.
I used to get that from our players when you go up there and it goes, it's not taking practice. You're up there swinging.
Kelly has raised his batting average 20 points with 3 hits tonight. Austin Jackson pops it into the seats. Jackson, another big night against the Blue Jays. He's had 3 hits in 4 at-bats.
Trying to go the other way right now to move that runner, even with a 7-0 lead.
You know what? If you practice that when you're up 7-0, it'll be common sense and an instinct when you are in a 0-0 game. You'll be able to do it
easier. Your body just does it. Mind just tells you to do it.
Drives this ball deep to center field, and Austin Jackson has a 2-run homer. A 4-hit night for Austin Jackson in the leadoff spot.
Started early and often tonight for Jackson. First pitch he saw, he singled. A couple of other singles, and then this looked like a breaking ball. Hung over the middle of the plate, then he dropped some head on it. And Neil Wagner knew it right away. He said, I needed to get that breaking ball outside. He has been back now for 19 games since spending a month on the disabled list. Austin Jackson, what does he mean for this team? He scored 22 runs in those 19 games. 4 of them here tonight.
His second 4-hit game of the season. His 17th multi-hit game. Nine-0 Tigers. Three balls and a strike to Andy Dirks. Dirks drove in the first run of the ball game with a double to the gap in left center.
Wagner is working on his 3rd inning here tonight when Rogers couldn't get out of the 5th. Neil came in working on his 3rd inning. His career high in the big leagues is just 2 innings. So he might have run out a little bit of a gas right here. He's thrown 34 pitches.
Pete Walker's aware of that, obviously. He keeps tabs on pitches and innings for all of his relievers, and he is making his way to the mound. And behind Wagner, the left-hander Darren Oliver starts to loosen up. Now it's time for the drive of the game, brought to you by the 2013 Honda CR-V, an IIHS top safety bit. Honda is the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Got to be the Austin Jackson home run that you just saw. Breaking ball inner half. Number 5 on the season for Jackson. Got some pop now. Sending it into the seats in left center field.
Big part of their lineup. Austin Jackson hitting in that leadoff spot. Torrey Hunter goes after the first pitch. Still nobody out in the 8th inning. Tigers have added 2 more runs in this inning. Upstairs. Well, the Tigers are certainly building up momentum for their weekend series against their division rivals, the Cleveland Indians.
You have a couple of games, like the last couple of games offensively for the Tigers. It just inflates you as a player. You say, okay, I'm on a roll right now. You start to see the ball better, get a couple of hits. Makes you feel good. John Gibbons, his team, though, on the other end of that's got to figure out what they need to do against the Twins this weekend.
Torrey Hunter has a base hit through the left side. Hunter's his second hit of the night. And John Gibbons has popped out of the Blue Jays dugout. He'll make a pitching change after Hunter gets his second base hit of the night. So it'll be Darren Oliver into the ball game to take on Prince Fielder. When we come back, Tigers lead it 9-0. The veteran Darren Oliver comes into the ball game. Oliver pitched the 9th inning on Tuesday night. Retired the Tigers in order, had a couple of strikeouts, and he's on trying to close out this inning. There's still nobody out. 4 Tigers have come to the plate in this inning.
Yeah, and all he has to do now with a couple of runners on is face Prince Fielder. You can see the ground ball efficiency. Get the ball on the ground, do that, you can get out of this inning. Get a couple of quick outs. Darren Oliver's had trouble this year, which is a mystery versus the left-handed batters.
I don't think he's been able to get that ball down and away to left-handed hitters. He's had his problems with Prince Fielder. There's a down and away breaking ball. Fielder is 3 for 5 against Oliver with a homer. Another breaking ball, and Fielder's quickly behind. See, those 2 pitches are down and away. And you can ask most matchup pitchers, Darren Oliver, understands his strength is being able to locate that pitch down and away.
He moved that ball around. He's just a pitcher. Understands how to get guys out.
Well, you saw that shot of those two pitchers on the Tigers bench, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and they are quite similar in their skills and ability. Well, that's a great 1-2 punch to have, and I don't care who you name number one. They're both number one in my mind, the way they throw.
I think that's why the Rays have been so good, because they had two number ones for the longest time. Good pitch there by Oliver. David Price and James Shields are 1 and 1A for me.
Yeah, and Shields was the consistent veteran presence. Oliver strikes out Fielder. That's the first out of the inning. Victor Martinez will bat right-handed for the first time tonight. The switch hitter has gone 1 for 4. He takes a strike.
Tigers have had some big hit games this year. They had a game earlier this year against the Houston Astros where they put together 21 hits in that game. They've also had a game where they've had 17 hits versus New York. It's just a good hitting team. They came into this game, this series, number 1 in the American League batting average wise in the American League. Team batting average.
Blue Jays handled them. R.A. Dickey beat them on Monday. Even his record at 8-8. Tigers managed just 3 runs on 7 hits, but then they had a 12-hit game in Game 2. They had 6 runs on 8 hits last night, and they put up a big number here tonight. 9 runs on 15 hits so far.
Number 1 in the American League, 279. It shows you how well Dickey pitched on Canada Day.
Two balls and 2 strikes. The Tigers jumped out early, 2 in the first, and they've never looked back. Victor Martinez strikes out. So a pair of strikeouts for Oliver. He gets Fielder, now Martinez. Another breaking ball. This one down and into the right-handed hitting Martinez.
Yeah, get on top of that one, and you want to end this one right on his back foot, just like he does right there, right into the glove of J.P. Arancibia. Sweeping breaking ball, left-handed pitch to a right-handed batter, right to his back foot.
Oliver crowds Johnny Peralta with the first pitch. Peralta picked up an RBI in the third on a double. Drives this ball to center. It's hit hard. Rasmus back on the run. Makes the catch. Peralta hit it hard. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th. The Tigers have a big lead. Now it's time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn in the Blackberry Broadcast Studio. On just 3 hits. Walked a couple, struck out 5. A very good outing for Verlander, who was in line for his first win in his last 5 starts.
Yeah, it's been a while for Verlander. Had a good fastball tonight. Started using it command. Started mixing in the curveball and his changeup. Really wasn't in a threat at all. Blue Jays got a runner to third base. That was Asturias back in the 5th inning, and that was it. Retired the last 5 batters he faced. Phil Koch will take over now, 0-5 with a 629 earned run average. A chance for him to turn his season around here tonight.
Phil Koch is 30 years old. He's in his 4th season with the Tigers. He came to Detroit in a 3-team trade that included Arizona and the New York Yankees. JP Arencibia will start things off against the left-hander Phil Koch. A base hit for Arencibia. They have broken his bat. He shoots it into right. Man on, nobody out. A reminder, the JP Arencibia bobblehead will be given away on Sunday, July 7th. When the Blue Jays take on the Minnesota Twins. Game time is 1:07. First 20,000 fans into Rogers Center will receive a JP Arencibia bobblehead now. Call the Blue Jays for tickets at 416-341-1234. Log on to BlueJays.com or stop by most Rogers Plus locations. And you can see Arencibia bobblehead with the catcher's mask propped up on his head. It will be given away on Sunday. Winonori Kawasaki hits it back to Koch. Koch gives Peralta a tough read. That ball is not caught.
That's a bad call.
That is a terrible call.
I would just sit right there and let him argue a little bit. The call by Alan Porter was he was taking the ball out of his glove, and Johnny Peralta wasn't even close to taking the ball out of his glove. It was a bad throw from Koch. The timing was just messed up between the pitcher and the shortstop. A low throw. You have to physically be trying to take the ball out of the glove, and watch Peralta. He reaches for it, hits him in the heel, and just falls out of his glove.
Yeah, it was out of his glove before he ever got his bare hand close to that ball. You can see the ball is moving out of the glove, and that's a bad call. Bonifacio pops up on the first pitch. Second baseman Santiago makes the catch. Santiago retires Bonifacio, who was batting in Reyes' spot. That was Bonifacio's first at bat of the ball game. He came in defensively. So Bautista will bat now with Kawasaki at first in 2 outs. Bautista's gone 0 for 3. Blue Jays have just 4 hits in this ball game. 3 of those hits came off Justin Verlander. Koch gave up a base hit there, and Arencibia, the first batter he faced here in the 8th inning.
3 singles and an infield hit by the Blue Jays, and that's been it.
Bouncing ball, that's a fair ball. Don Kelly, a long throw in the dirt, scooped by Fielder. No problem at all. Fielder handles the low throw from Kelly. Blue Jays are done in the 8th. We'll go to the 9th. It's all Tigers. This ball game, and over on Sportsnet 360, Blue Jays Express, the new 30-minute interactive post-game show with host Eric Smith and former Blue Jays Paul Spaljerek and Greg O'Halloran providing analysis. Check out sportsnet.ca/360 for channel listings. It is country night at Rogers Center. They've been playing country music in between every inning, and all the Blue Jays staff around the ballpark have been decked out in Western clothes. Casey Janssen needs some work. It's been a while since he's pitched, and he is into the ball game here in the ninth.
Yeah, 4 days ago, that last day in Boston, Janssen was able to pitch it. It's been a while since he has had a save opportunity.
Blue Jays have hit a rough stretch and haven't had many opportunities to get Janssen out there in a save situation. Janssen's last save, his 17th, came on Saturday, June 22nd. It's been quite a dry spell for Casey Janssen. He needs to get some work just to stay sharp.
Yeah, he just hasn't had the chance to get a save. Last pitched on the 30th, just faced one batter. That was that last batter in Boston where they walked off the Red Sox.
Alex Avila grounds out to start the inning. Ramon Santiago has singled and scored tonight. He is starting and started at second in place of Omar Infante, who left last night's game after that hard slide by Colby Rasmus. Santiago drives it down the left side. That's a fair ball. It's going to go all the way down into the corner. Santiago is coasting into second with a double, his 4th of the season. Rogers customers can watch every Blue Jays game this season on Sportsnet live on your smartphone. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com/sports to get started. Good crowd on hand here at Rogers Center tonight. 35,978 showed up for this ball game. Minnesota Twins will be in town tomorrow night. They'll start a 3-game series. Mark Burley will open things up for the Jays against Kevin Correa. On Saturday, it'll be R.A. Dickey against Mike Pelfrey, and then the Canadian Scott Diamond, the left-hander, starts on Sunday against Todd Redmond, who will get that start in place of Chen-Ming Wong, who has been designated for assignment.
That would have been his spot unless the Blue Jays make a change. Right now he is scheduled, and that'll probably then Redmond will probably be followed by the rest of the bullpen. I mean, he's not really stretched out. It might be the bullpen's day.
Don Kelly's had a 3-hit night. Gets out in front of that Jansen pitch and hits it way foul. Kelly starting at third base for Miguel Cabrera, who had the day off. No injury, nothing related to the back problem Cabrera had earlier in this series. Kelly with his first 3-hit game of the season tonight. He's had 3 2-hit games and looking for his first 4-hit game here in the ninth. Casey Janssen hits him with the pitch, and Kelly will take first. 2 on and 1 out. Fans, a reminder, you can meet Emilio Bonifacio and Ismael Rogers tomorrow between 12 and 1. They'll be signing autographs at the Jays Shop at Sears, the Young and Dundas location. So if you want to meet Emilio Bonifacio and Ismael Rogers, you can do that tomorrow at the Jays Shop at Sears. 1 autograph item per person, per player, please. So Don Kelly is at first base after being hit by a pitch. Now back to the top of the order, and this man is red hot. Austin Jackson hit a 2-run homer his last time up. He is 4 for 5.
The only time they were able to get him is Esmil Rogers struck him out in the 4th inning. Everything else he has hit sharply. And we told you that Casey Jansen really hasn't had a lot of save opportunities. This is tough for a closer right here. Really a mop-up type of situation. You're just trying to get some work. The juices aren't flowing, and you're not as sharp. I mean, he never walks anybody or hits anybody.
No, he's got great command, and that has been his trademark. When he's into the game, he commands both sides of the plate. Jansen has really done a great job all year long. That's the first batter he's hit all season. 2-0. Jackson lays off. It's 3-0. Tigers haven't had a batter pick up 5 hits in a game since last year. There's a strike right down Broadway. Quentin Berry had a 5-hit game for the Tigers June 17th against Colorado. Jackson walks. Justin Verlander got off to a great start tonight. He set down the first 11 he faced in this ball game.
He had a good fastball. What's new with him? I thought his breaking ball was good. His command of the fastball, where he wanted to throw it, sometimes up, sometimes down and away, good. He always had that curveball. In line to win for the first time in 5 starts. Last one on June 7th. So Tigers sending their 2 aces here the last 2 games, and they could come away with a couple of wins.
Andy Dirks batting in the 2nd spot tonight. Max Scherzer improved to 13-0 last night. Pretty good 1-2 punch in a series. You go up against Scherzer and Verlander back-to-back. It's going to be difficult for anybody to win 2 in a row when they go.
Yeah, if they're throwing in a 3-game series, the 2 of them, tough to win that series.
Scherzer's won his last 18 decisions. Last lost September 23rd. That's getting it done. Casey Jansen showing his rust. He hasn't worked an awful lot lately, and he's a guy that can always come in and pinpoint his pitches on both sides of the plate. Bases are loaded, 1 out. Dirks has hit a grand slam this season, 1 of 3 that the Tigers have hit. Of course, he's had a good night tonight. He's been on base 4 times. A double, 2 walks. He reached on an error.
I'm trying to add on to his night right here. Something else. Jansen just getting some work in here. If you're John Gibbons, I think you got to pull the plug here if he doesn't get Dirks. He's approaching 20 pitches. You still got a game tomorrow. You might need him. this game is over with. He's gotten his work in. He's got his 20 pitches or so. I think if he loses him or has a high pitch count to him, I think you got to pull the plug.
Yeah, the one thing that you can just about count on with Jansen, he's never going to throw too many pitches, but as you're right, 19 now, and Loop is ready just in case. I agree with you. I think they'll probably make a change just to make sure that Jansen would be available for tomorrow night's game.
You know, he goes a little bit further, and you don't have Casey tomorrow if you need him to close out tomorrow night's game. That's the danger in pitching your closer in these types of games. You know, you run up that pitch count, and you don't have the excitement and the chance to get a save.
Full count. Ricks fouls it back. This is the last thing Jansen wanted to see.
And John Gibbons, Pete Walker, Pat Henkin.
Country Western night at Rogers Center. That's where you see all the cowboy hats out with the Blue Jays logo. Country Western theme all night long. Another foul ball. Pitch 22.
Well, tomorrow they got to go back to the drawing board. Burley versus Korea, and the Twins are probably in town by now. They played an afternoon game against the Yankees today.
Twins lost 9-5 at the hands of the Yankees, and there's a bases loaded walk. Santiago will come in from third, and John Gibbons indeed out of the Blue Jays dugout. He's already made the call for the left-hander. Casey Jansen showing signs of rust. He hit a batter and walked 2. He also gave up a double, so he'll be taken out of this ball game. And Aaron Loop will come in, still just 1 out, and the bases are loaded. When we come back, it'll be Loop against Torrey Hunter. Canada and Little League Canada. St. John's, Newfoundland, July 15th, 16th, and 17th. It'll be at Airport Heights Field. The instructors include Roberto Alomar, the Hall of Famer, Devon White, Homer Bush, Lloyd Mosby, and Dwayne Ward. Visit BlueJays.com/Baseball Academy for more information. The Toronto Blue Jays are proud supporters of amateur baseball across Canada. Aaron Loop to Torrey Hunter.
And there are the numbers for Loop. 36 games now for the left-hander. He's 33 strikeouts, just 5 walks this year. He's been outstanding. versus both the lefties and the righties. And from a hitter standpoint right now, this is where you go from a good game to a great game. Right? You know, when you get these add-on extra RBI opportunities right now. Hunter has had 3 hits this year with the bases loaded that have accounted for 7 RBIs already.
He drives this ball toward the gap. Bautista on the run. He'll get there. Kelly tags at third. He comes in. Torrey Hunter with his second sacrifice fly of the night. He's had a 3 RBI night. That run will be charged to Casey Jansen, and Torrey Hunter shows his experience. The approach is a good one.
Yeah, just go the other way. You got a chance. Jose gets over there and backhands it. Nice catch. Hunter with another RBI.
Prince Fielder takes a breaking ball outside. Fielder struck out against Darren Oliver in the 8th. One and one. Blue Jays are going to have to wash this one from their memory very quickly. They trail 11-0, and Minnesota will be here tomorrow night.
Best thing you can do right there. And that's the great thing about baseball. Tomorrow's another day.
Loop off the mound makes a nice play to throw out Fielder, and the inning has come to an end, but the Tigers tack on 2 more. They lead at 11-0. We'll go to the bottom of the ninth. Encarnacion, Lind, and Rasmus when we come back. We move to the bottom of the ninth. The left-hander Darren Downs comes into the ballgame. Phil Koch had a good inning. He allowed a single and nothing more. So Downs makes his appearance. It's his second appearance he's made in this series.
Yeah, he'll be around the plate. Not really overpowering, but he's very polished. And his fastball tops out at 88, 89 miles an hour. He's got a curveball and a deceptive changeup. His ERA about 4.5. He's looking for his first win. And now Downs, probably the long man out of the bullpen for Detroit, will get some work here.
Brian Pena, the backup catcher, takes over at first base. He replaces Prince Fielder. Fielder will get a half inning off tonight. Josh Thole is going to bat for Edwin Encarnacion. Edwin started and went 1 for 2 with a walk. So Thole gets an at bat against the lefty Downs. Prince Fielder had a good series. Came in this game 7 for 21 against the Blue Jays, and Tolley has a base hit, a pinch hit base hit against the lefty. So a man aboard, nobody out. Now time for a preview of what's coming up on Connected. Here's Jamie Thomas and Ivanka Osman. Adam Lind has had a tough night at the plate, a couple of strikeouts, and he grounded into a 1-6-3 double play. Lind played in last night's game. He struck out 3 times in an 0-for-4 night. Tigers, of course, not holding Tolley on at first. They lead it 11-0. Colby Rasmus is on deck. Blue Jays with just 5 hits now with Tolley's pinch single. Three and 0. Fourth of July. See some Americans in the crowd to honor the holiday. Canada Day on Monday.
Now that is an interesting rally cap.
Yeah.
I like it.
11-0 calls for desperation.
Country music night. Got their hats on backwards. Looking for some runs.
3-1 to Lynn. Bounced foul outside of first. Tomorrow night, Blue Jays will meet the Minnesota Twins for the first time this year. It'll be Kevin Correa against Mark Burley to open it up. Then R.A. Dickey goes to the mound, and he's been on quite a run. Dickey won the opener on Canada Day. And then Todd Redmond will pitch the series finale on Sunday. Lynn strikes out. His 3rd strikeout of the night.
Well, that's something we didn't see from him when he was in that nice little hot streak. He was hitting everything, very rarely striking out. Now he's had another multi-strikeout night.
Colby Rasmus has flied out and grounded out twice. Rasmus was, of course, the focal point after the game last night, after that hard slide in the 4th inning when he took out Omar Infante. Takes one inside. This is the last time these two clubs will meet this season. Ball on a strike. Rasmus himself said, well, if they hit me, that's part of the game. They took exception to my hard slide, and he said, I'm good with that. I'll wear it.
Put some ice on. No big deal. I mean, he understands.
I think Jim Leland's Tigers have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
They've already had one pitcher suspended, Rick Porcello, and they're staring the Cleveland Indians dead in the face for the next 4 games. So I think they'll settle that sometime else. And Pena goes to the bag. Makes a nice grab of the bouncing ball with the backhand, and the Blue Jays are down to their final out.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is get distracted as a team and start getting into a little bit of a beanball war or fighting against another team. Get out there and just play the game. Let your wins do all the talking.
And obviously, the Tigers want to go back to the postseason. Meiser Asturias, batting right-handed for the first time tonight. Asturias 1-for-3. Continues to hit well against Justin Verlander, he's got another hit. This is going to get down. Josh Tolley is going to come around third. The Blue Jays are going to score. Storis with his second hit of the night drives in the first Blue Jays run. He comes with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, he's just been swinging the bat a lot better. He just looks a little bit more free and easy at the plate. He knows he's going to come in there with that fastball, even with a runner in scoring position, and he'll cash him. Fastball right down the middle. Nicer short swing, head down. Picks up the RBI. He's up to 21 now.
Rajai Davis made up his mind to swing, then he saw the ball was outside. He tried to check his swing, but he went around. Downs gets ahead 0-2. Well, the Blue Jays avoid the shutout. Certainly nothing to celebrate as the Tigers will take the series 3-1. Tigers will also take the season series 5-2. And as always is the case here at Rogers Center, a lot of Tiger fans on hand. From London down to Detroit, it's Tiger country. And the Southern Ontario has been divided for years. A lot of Tiger fans down there.
They got a good team. It's a team, I think, that has a chance to go deep.
Ball game. Rajai Davis strikes out. The game is over. Downs has a pair of strikeouts in the ninth, and it was all Tigers. Austin Jackson got it started. He hit the first pitch of the ball game. And the Tigers never stopped hitting. They scored 11 runs on 16 hits. Jim Leyland's Tigers win the series 3-1. They'll go from here to Cleveland for a 4-game series. A reminder coming up on East Ontario, West End Pacific, it's connected. And don't forget on Sportsnet 360, it's the new post-game show, Blue Jays Express with Eric Smith. Check out sportsnet.ca/360 for channel listings. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night.